My next guest is directly here from New York, from the heart of New York. So between Greenwich Village and Soho, Laura Walker, and we have the great chance to talk about radio. And you just told me it's the moment. It's the moment for radio. So why is it right now the moment for radio?
Because I think radio is moving from kind of live broadcast to on demand, and podcasts are picking up in a major way in the United States, growing rapidly, here growing rapidly. And I think that people are going to be able to hear whatever they want to hear, when they want it, wherever they are. And that means that people are going to be using audio in new ways. And I think every media company in the United States and globally is going to experiment with podcasts and with audio in new ways.
Especially longer formats, not only like 3-minute formats, but like long listening formats, like 1 hour, 2 hours.
Yes, I think so. What happens, people are using podcasts like they use radio during their commute, in the car, and while they're cooking, while they're eating. So we're doing we have about 20 podcasts that we produce and distribute. We get about 38 million downloads a month on our podcasts. And so we do Radio Lab and Freakonomics. And so Radio Lab will be 20 minutes or an hour, anywhere in between, depending on what that piece needs to be. You don't have to kind of do it for like 58 minutes like we used to in radio. You can do it at, any length you need.
If you have told one of your colleagues in the mid-90s or later that he will focus later on a format that is based on talk radio, based on storytelling, based on an hour feature or something like that, he would thought you're completely crazy, or?
Yes, that's right. And who knew that, here we are in 2017, and this is about 10, 11 years after podcasts started. Even back then, nobody thought, hey, they're crazy, they're kind of cool, but nobody listens. But look what's happened in the last couple of years. I think with kind of the serial podcast here, and I understand there's a great podcast, a serial in the United States, and great podcast here coming up. I think people are discovering them. And, it's a great thing to multitask with. And what I love about radio, and what we all kind of got into radio to do, is to tell stories. And so it's a great medium for that.
When I talk to successful radio makers in Europe and I ask them about podcasts and nonlinear radio, they always tell me that this is an additional service. It's not the main service, and it's not really radio. So what do you think about it? So I think radio is more and more difficult to make money with, linear radio, and podcast is not yet in the market to be a sustainable business model where you have the stats and the media spending in. So how could this work for the radio industry from a marketing perspective?
So I think in the United States, just this past year, you're seeing many of us be able to make it a sustainable business and in some cases a profitable business. So I think there are a couple things that are going on. The podcast ad market is hot. So there are lots and lots of advertisers that want to be first, and they want to experiment with the podcast media. So whether it's Blue Apron or Squarespace or Ford or Cadillac or GE, they're all experimenting in the podcast space to advertise. They're also doing custom content, custom podcasts themselves. So that's another way that we as radio makers can make money, by partnering with some of these clients to make audio and podcasts that tell their story or tell a story that they want to be told. And there are a couple more revenue streams that are coming in to the podcast market in the United States that we're experimenting with. One is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding like through Kickstarter and through Patreon and through our own channels. We at New York Public Radio, we have 250,000 members who pay on average $140 a year for something they get for free. And some of that is podcasting, and we've seen an uptick in kind of crowdfunding for that. The other thing that's going on that's really interesting is that we're finding that video and film and television, they're all looking to podcasts for ideas because they're spending so much money on original content, and looking at podcasts as a way to, get an idea and then create a TV show or a film or other kinds of things. So that's a growing trend and another way for podcasters to make money.
I just looked it up before our interview. I started podcasting in 2004. So a long time ago, and that at that time we saw the download stats of the podcast, but we never saw at this time the duration and the retention of users. And that was one of the reasons I turned to YouTube years ago, because I saw not only the views, but also saw the retention and the duration of my audience. Yeah. So, but I think for podcasting, it's still the same problem. We see the download stats, but we have no clue how long people listen to our podcast. So how can we change this in the industry?
Yes, well, I think that is changing. So I think everyone from Nielsen to some of the podcast platforms, Google and Facebook, Spotify, we're starting to get that information. Apple, which is the #1 kind of platform for podcasts in the United States, we're starting to get that information. We're going to get it more this fall. How long people are listening. So also the advertisers can know that information. Are they listening to the open, to the middle, and to the end podcast? But we as creators, we need to have that, right? So that kind of like what's working, what's not, how long are people going. We're also creating platforms where we can see there's new things that are not just downloadable audio or radio, but new ways of creating experiences in audio where you can actually see the stats. So we have something on our website which we call Discover Function, where you put in, I'm interested in news, I'm interested in tech, I'm interested in storytelling, and I like these podcasts, and I have 30 minutes. So it downloads something for you from a variety of different radio shows and podcasts, and you can tell what people are listening to, and it's also a different kind of form of listening. It's a personalized stream.
So it's a data-driven storytelling as well, so you listen to the data and then you see what kind of formats are successful and what not.
Yes, and on a couple of these platforms, they've been used by producers to kind of change how they introduce a segment, or what works with kind of when you're describing you try it a couple ways and see what people are responding to.
Now we're talking, so, and I know there's a lot of users out there who are working on their podcast concept and trying to make a successful podcast. So now we have the professional here. Maybe you can give the audience 3 recommendations how to do a professional or a successful podcast. So what are the 3 levers that makes a podcast successful?
Well, I would say listen to the story and shape a story in a way that is really going to take your audience with you. Audio is such a deeply intimate medium, and it's a perfect storytelling medium. And so I say take the time and listen to your audience. I think secondly, mix it up, kind of find young voices and people that you want to listen to you, find those folks and get them to tell their stories. Like we have a podcast called Two Dope Queens with Jessica Williams and Phoebe Robinson. It is really funny. They just tell their own stories and it is wildly popular. And then thirdly, I think another thing that we've been experimenting with is how can you create a story that will motivate people to do something, to engage, to have a debate, to have a discussion with a friend, to even participate in a contest that we have. We had a podcast called Note to Self where Manu Samaroni, the host, challenged her listeners to kind of do a digital detox for a week, and each day she would give the audience a different thing to do, and we sent texts and we sent emails, and we got lots and lots of responders. 60,000 people have signed up and done this thing, and so that's the power of audio. It's story, it's finding those voices and listening deeply, and then it's motivating action.
So when I meet radio people, they always focus on current content, like news content, very up to date. But when I see the success of podcasts, it's always more timeless. So what would you recommend? More timeless content, like evergreens that you can listen to half a year later, or more up to date content?
Well, I think it's very interesting. In the United States, we have, up until this year, done only timeless content. and with the belief that podcasts, people didn't want to they would listen and they would kind of, get to it sometime in the next week or whatever. But there have been a couple of podcasts recently that have gotten the attention of the U.S. market. One is the New York Times has done something called The Daily, and people listen to it every single day. NPR has one at the beginning of the morning. Every single day you listen. So we're experimenting with that, and we find that it's about habit. It's like radio. It's about a daily habit. And so it's never going to be something for breaking news. It's not going to be something that's going to tell you what's happening exactly right now. I say never may be too strong, but it isn't right now. But it's actually, I would say, do both. And it takes different skills, but do both.
So from my point of view, so the problem with the up-to-date content, the daily content is all these podcatchers are downloading everything. So I subscribe the daily program and I download every episode, but I never listen to the episode. So people think this is very successful because people are downloading this, and it's only causing costs and budget on the server side, but not any retention. So as you just mentioned, we need other stats.
Yes, exactly. So that's why we need to know how much are people listening. And you can start to tell right now. And I think there'll be a shakeout and some new and interesting things that'll happen when people actually know whether you're downloading. But I think there's a new study out that shows here, I think the download and streaming are about equal. And that's a great thing. That's terrific.
Last question. Do you have a favorite podcast?
My favorite podcast right now is actually one of ours, and it's called More Perfect. It's by the Radiolab folks, Jad Abumrad, and it's about the Supreme Court and about great issues that are coming before our Supreme Court. Very, very important issues, from voting kind of things to our Second Amendment, and done in a way that Radiolab does. Takes a very complex issue and that tells the stories about it and finds the human kind of element that makes you understand the complex issues behind the Supreme Court.
So this is your call to action. You listen to that podcast. Laura Walker, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to having you.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it.